Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodha Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodha Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodha Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodha Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Astottara Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki, Prem Sakoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki, Shri Vrindavan Dhama ki, Mayapur Navadvip Dhama ki, Ganga Mai ki, Yamuna Mai ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Tulsi Maharani ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bom. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we'll continue reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 18, Prithu Maharaj milks the earth planet. We will read text 30, 31 and 32. What do we have on the sheet? We have 31 on the sheet. 31 and 32. Text 30. Atasmin Bhagavan Vainya Prajanam Vritidhapita Nivasan Kalpayang Chakre Tatra Tatra Yatarhata. To all the citizens of the state, King Prithu was as good as a father. Thus he was visibly engaged in giving them proper subsistence and proper employment for subsistence. After leveling the surface of the globe, he earmarked different places for residential quarters inasmuch as they were desirable. Text 31. Gramampura patanani durgani vividhani cha goshan vrajan sasibiran akaran ketakarvatan. In this way, the king founded many types of villages, settlements, and towns, and built forts, residences for cowherdsmen, stables for the animals, and places for the royal camps, mining places, agricultural towns, and mountain villages. Text 32. Please repeat. Prak Prito Iha Na Eva Esha Pura Grama Adi Kalpana Yata Sukham Vasantisma Tatra Tatra Akutabhaya Prakritor iha naivaisha Prakritor iva naivaisha Pura gramadi kalpana Pura gramadi kalpana Yata sukham vashanti sma Yata sukham vashanti sma Tatra tatra kuto bhaya Tatra tatra kuto bhaya Prakritoryeha naivaisha Pura gramadi kalpana Yata sukham vashanti sma tatra tatra kuto bhaya. Prakpritor iha naivaisha puragramadi kalpana yata sukham vashanti sma tatra tatra kuto bhaya. Prak, before, Prithu, King Prithu, Iha, on this planet, Na, never, Eva, certainly, Esha, this, Pura, of towns, Grama Adi, of villages, etc., Kalpana, planned arrangement, Yata, as, Sukham, convenient, Vasantisma, lived, Tatra Tatra, here and there, Akuta Bahya, without hesitation. Translation. Before the reign of King Prithu, there was no planned arrangement for different cities, villages, pasturing grounds, etc. Everything was scattered, and everyone constructed his residential quarters according to his own convenience. However, since King Prithu, plans were made for towns and villages. You may repeat. Before the reign of King Prithu, there was no planned arrangement for different cities, villages, pasturing grounds, etc. Everything was scattered, and everyone constructed his residential quarters according to his own convenience. However, since King Prithu, plans were made for towns and villages. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. From this statement, it appears that town and city planning is not new, but has been coming down since the time of King Prithu. In India, we can see regular planning methods evident in very old cities. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are many descriptions of such ancient cities. Even 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna's capital, Dwaraka, was well planned, and similar other cities, Mathura and Hastinapur, now New Delhi, were also well planned. Thus, the planning of cities and towns is not a modern innovation, but was existing in bygone ages. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 4th canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Prithu Maharaj Milks the Earth Planet. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Ham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitan Tang Sajivam Sa Advaitam Sa Vadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyashch Kripa Sindhubhya eva Chapati Tanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prakritor ihanai vaisha pura gramadi kalpana yata sukham vashanti sma tatra akuto bhaya. Before the reign of King Prithu, there was no planned arrangement for different cities, villages, pasturing grounds, etc. Everything was scattered and everyone constructed his residential quarters according to his own convenience. However, since King Prithu, plans were made for towns and villages. This chapter, Maharaj Prithu milks the earth planet, exposes quite an amazing pastime where the Supreme Lord, or the incarnation, the Shaktavesh manifestation of the Supreme Lord, King Prithu, Maharaj Prithu, is attempting, or is very keen on establishing balance, law and order, prosperity and well-being for all the citizens of the earth planet. Just prior to this, we find that due to various reasons, Bhumi Devi, the earth planet, had withheld all her resources that were meant for the benefit and the sustenance of all the living entities on the planet. And she had, noteworthy reasons. Of course, being a mother, naturally she wants to provide without hesitation for the best welfare of her children. But in this case, her realization led her to withhold the resources. One important reason was that the various types of people on the planet at that time were abusing her resources for their own sense gratification. Of course, sense gratification on a certain level is okay. Not on our level, of course, but on a certain level it's okay, if it is done according to the injunctions and the guidelines given in Shastra, and also especially following the advice and the systems presented by the great sages. And at the beginning of this chapter, just before she is about to be severely punished or threatened with punishment by King Prithu, she explains her reasons that these people on the planet Earth were not following the guidance and the injunctions as taught by the previous acharyas, the great sages, and devotees, to get whatever they wanted in a responsible way, without impeding on the livelihood and the sustenance of other living entities. Of course, in today's time, no one really is following anything regarding their sustenance when it comes to following the scripture, the Manu Samhita, or the great sages on how to enjoy oneself, how to sustain oneself, how to experience sense gratification. It's not going on in any way. Most people today, all people today, do not have even an inkling of understanding that there is a system. So after hearing this, King Prithu relented on punishing her. And then Bhumi Devi, we go through this whole chapter, she first advises the Lord, Prithu, that to milk her by providing a calf, a container, and a milkman. So we find elaborate descriptions, not elaborate, but brief descriptions of all the various types of groups of personalities that got together and milked the earth to get the essence of what their livelihood depends on. And we can just read quickly some of them. Some of them are quite remarkable. How broad-minded and generous and charitable even King Prithu was to allow everyone. And some of the personalities or groups of persons are quite interesting. And it was fine. The king oversaw it all. Of course, the first person that milked the earth was the Lord himself, using Swayambhuva Manu as the calf. And through that, out came from the planet Earth all the herbs and grains that are meant for the sustenance of everyone. Then the great sages next used Brihaspati as a cow, and they milked from the planet Earth all types of Vedic knowledge, purifying words, and hymns. Thereafter the demigods used Indra, and they milked from the earth planet the beverage known as the Soma Ras. And then the demons, the sons of Diti, they transformed, anybody remember who? Prahlad Maharaj. You can see they take the best of that group and they utilize it as a cow, as a calf, because if you know milking, any of you have milked a cow? You should. Half your life is wasted if you don't milk a cow. But the traditional way of milking a cow is that the cow readily gives milk when her loved one, her child, is near. So they bring a calf close, nearby, or sometimes they let the calf just quickly suck on the udders of the cow to let the milk start flowing from the cow because of the love and the affection the cow has. So as soon as that happens, then they pull the calf away and the milkman starts milking the cow because there's a flow of affection on seeing their beloved, the calf. So like this, they were taking the best of each group of persons. The best of the demigods is, of course, Indra. The best of the sages is Brihaspati. The best of the demons, the Daityas, is Prahlad Maharaj. So they transformed him into a calf and they milked out various kinds of liquor and beer. So this is also the best of what they want, the best of what they feel is necessary. And you can see the whole scope of how different it is for different groups of people, right? The great sages wanted Vedic knowledge, hymns and mantras, right? The demigods wanted somaras, the daityas wanted liquor and beer. And then the inhabitants of Gandharva Loka and Apsara Loka made Vishvavashu into a calf, and they drew milk into a lotus flower pot. And that milk took the shape of musical art and beauty. So this is what they liked. They liked arts and culture, so they milked that out of the earth. And then the inhabitants of Siddhaloka transformed the great sage Kapila, and they milked out yogic mystic powers. There's so many siddhis, asta-siddhis, greater than the greatest, smaller than the smallest, lighter than the lightest, making things appear out of ether. So they milked that because this is what they were most attuned to. Then inhabitants of Kimpurusha Loka turned the demon Maya into a calf. This is not Maya Devi, there's a Maya Danava, a personality, and they milked out mystic powers by which one can disappear immediately from another's vision and appear again in a different form. So this was very important to them. Then the yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts and witches, they transformed a manifestation of Lord Shiva called Rudra, and they milked out beverages made out of blood and put them into a pot made out of skulls. This is important to them. Thereafter, cobras and snakes without hoods, large snakes, scorpions, and many other poisonous animals took poison out of the planet Earth as their milk. And they used Takshak, the flying bird, who eventually, what was so significant about Takshak in Bhagavatam? He's the one that eventually bites Parikshit Maharaj. He's the one, Takshak. So this was important to them. Poison. Four-legged animals like cows made a calf out of the bull who carries Lord Shiva. Who is the bull that carries Lord Shiva? What is the bull's name? Nandi. And made a milking pot out of the forest. They got fresh green grasses to eat. Important to four-legged animals. The birds made a calf out of Garuda and took milk from the planet Earth in the form of moving insects. Because that's what they eat. Right? Birds eat that. Like this, we find different groups of persons, personalities, entities. Like the trees made a calf out of the banyan tree, the best of all the trees. And thus they delivered milk in the form of many delicious juices. So we find that each one of these groups of entities, they were honest about what they were most sustained by. This is a very interesting principle. They understood that this is where we are at now. This is what I need to be peaceful, to be balanced. And they were open to presenting that desire to the earth, to the Lord, that this is where I am at now, this is what I need. And the Lord and Mother Earth, in reciprocation with their honesty and where they at, provided them what they needed for where they were at. And the way they got what they did was being honest and approaching the process to get what they wanted for their sustenance in a regulated way, in an authorized way, in a way that's given by Krishna himself. Dharmantu Shakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. That dharma, or the way to exist in this world in a way that does not impact on someone else, to get to rise up to one's ultimate purpose, that is called dharma. And that process is given by God himself. It cannot be fashioned from some other way, from some other means. Like we see, that was happening before this incident, this whole pastime happened, and there was chaos reigning. Even in bhakti, we find that. Sometimes we feel bhakti, and it's true, bhakti flows. It's hard to contain a river when it's in flood. But the principle is that there are two banks, and bhakti flows, or the river flows between the two banks. So there are guardrails, there are systems, there are processes that bhakti flows in. And that process is given by Krishna himself through the acharyas. Sometimes we may feel anything it's fine as long as we have the right mood. Right? As long as we have the right mood, it's okay. Then where can it stop? Because you may feel, I'm very attached to liquor, I have the right mood, I want to offer the liquor to Krishna and let me drink it. That's ludicrous, because we know Krishna won't accept it. What's that? Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatri Vidim Vina Akaintiki Harir Bhakti Utpatayeva Kalpate. That when we practice bhakti, or the process of dharma even, without reference, without guidance from the scriptures, like the Shrutis and Smritis, the Puranas, the Pancharatras, all these revealed scriptures, when we practice our process without reference to it, what happens? It becomes simply a disturbance to all of society. Simply becomes a disturbance, because first and foremost, why is it a disturbance? Because it's not accepted by Krishna. It's not accepted by Krishna. So yes, in the beginning we may have all sorts of ideas through our conditioning and indoctrinations and influences. Just like a child, you can't expect a child, who's so free free thinking to bind them into a system. They'll rebel. So sometimes in the beginning, Krishna accepts, the spiritual authorities just accept whatever's coming. You may have heard or read in Prabhupada's early days of establishing the Hare Krishna movement, some of the things he would just accept. In all sorts of ways, just accepting the emotion and the bhav that came with the person. You may hear in 26th Avenue, a drunk would just walk in the middle of class, carrying a roll of toilet paper. And he'd just walk in, disrupt the whole thing, go to the toilet, leave it there, and come out and walk out. That's bhakti. That's bhakti. Toilet paper, but that's bhakti. Laborer comes to Prabhupada in India, in the middle of all these people, wealthy people, he comes in all disheveled. Laborer puts a bunch of flowers on Prabhupada's table. And Prabhupada, he sort of becomes emotional about it. So just see, this is bhakti. I remember the account of the first deity installation in ISKCON. That was for Jagannath in San Francisco. It was the system. They didn't have 3-day blindfolds and all these touching of the various parts of the body, the senses to open up, what they call that, pran pratishta, touching the heart of the guru touches his heart, touches the deity's heart. Didn't have all that. What was Prabhupada's way of installing the deity? There was kirtan and one candle in the front. Prabhupada waved candle 7 times and he invited everyone else to do the same. Jagannath was installed. The first deity in ISKCON like that. So yes, in the beginning, yes, we'll have these things. But as we mature, we must understand there are systems. There is sadhana bhakti. Vaidhi is sadhana bhakti. Otherwise, if we choose not to, on the plea that it's free and open and for ourselves, then that can create disturbance as well. Of course, when a powerful acharya on the level of Prabhupada, he authorized something, then that's different. That's very much different. Like you hear of the way Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would sometimes install deities. They would have the deity ready. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur will come in, he'll look at the deity, he'll take tulsi, dip it in chandan and place at the lotus feet of the deity. Nothing more needed. Nothing more needed at all. Because a Mahabhagavat on that level will, of course, attract Krishna to take presence. So like this we'll find so many instances where it doesn't follow a system, but it follows the greater principle of being deeply connected in pleasing Krishna. But for our sake, for the general populace sake, we be honest where we are at and we follow the system. And when we follow the system that's given by Krishna, given by the great sages and acharyas, then the reward is there in an authorized way. Otherwise, it is corruption. It is corruption, right? Just like we find in so many governments today. They try to get some benefit through another means, not going through proper channels. And so many other people then get denied the benefit of what that item was or what that prosperity was, in the sense that only 1 or 2 people benefit from it. We see that in South Africa. So many corrupt ways, tender frauds and siphoning of monies going on. Millions and billions of rands have been taken. And what's even more shocking is that people forget about it. Right? And the same people who have done it, because of their aura and charisma, they still accept it and worship. This is the amazing state of people's intelligence today. They actually appreciate living in a state of corruption. Because there's corruption in our hearts, we are okay with corruption. Because we are thinking one day corruption is going to serve me right. It's going to benefit me in some way. Always praying for that opportunity. So when we don't follow the system that's given by the Supreme Lord as dharma, then it is corrupt. So here are all these different types of people. They got the best of what they wanted, of what they considered, or what was assigned for them for their best welfare in an honest way. So honesty is important. In the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd chapter, it's described, akama sarva kama va moksha karma udaridi, that no matter what your level is, no matter what types of desires you have, you can be a pure devotee, a person free from all desires, akama, you can have full of desires, sarva kama, or you could be desiring liberation. Still you go to that one person, Krishna, and present it to him. And you engage in the process by which to fulfill your desires. Because by engaging in that process, one becomes gradually purified, even of those desires. Because right now, how many of us are really ready to give up our desires just like that? It's tough, right? It's tough. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, right? The 4 categories of sinful life or sense gratification that and it expands in so many different types of mutations and subtleties. We're not ready to give it up, but at least we must present it honestly to the process and work within the process, serve within the process, practice within the process, and gradually become purified of it. So this is what's being presented here in this chapter. And we find towards the end of this chapter, after everybody had, through milking the planet Earth and getting what they wanted, we find then Prithu as being the very attentive and expert ruler of the planet. He began making all sorts of physical terrestrial arrangements on the planet Earth to make the situation, make the place very livable in a structured way. Here we find the description that before Prithu started arranging city planning and town planning, anyone would just build anyhow, how they wanted, in any haphazard way according to their whims and fancies and their desires. And you go to some countries or some places, just walk around South Africa, you'll see like weird system of building. And it's not pleasing to the eye when you see these groups of homes or estates of homes or whatever. Like even if you drive up here, up Florence Nightingale, you wonder why couldn't they have planned this nicer? It's such an eyesore to see this type of a house and that type of a house and this. It's all weird, right? But when you see something that's planned, with similar structures that complement each other, it's immediately pleasing to the eye. Like, hey, I'd like to live there. But if you see something that's haphazard, then it doesn't appeal to the mind and the heart. It doesn't appeal. So here we see Prithu, he's doing this. He's planning the towns, the villages, making sure that the appropriate spaces, the appropriate land is given to certain types of people based on their natures, based on their activities, their occupations. So like this, it was going on from his time. And here Prabhupada in the purport, he makes reference to Lord Krishna's capital, Dwaraka. You would remember when Krishna was living in Mathura, who was it? King Jarasandha attacked Mathura 17 or 18 times, many times, right? He attacked. And each time, of course, we hear that he was defeated single-handedly by Krishna. But at the end, Krishna was thinking there were a few other issues going on. Another person was attacking from one side. What was his name? Was it Kalayavana? Anyway, some other military force was attacking from the other side. So Krishna considered that he needed to do something, that if he focuses on one side, then the citizens of Mathura would be compromised, their safety. So what did he do? He had constructed another residence, another fort called Dwaraka on the western side of the country of India. And the night before the battle was to begin, what did Krishna do? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur speaks that while everyone was sleeping, Krishna mystically transferred everybody in their sleep. Right? As soon as the city was built, transferred everybody across to Dwaraka. And when they woke up, they found themselves, wow, we're in a new place. So much better even. And the description in that chapter goes on to describe how beautiful everything was, how well planned, how things were in certain places for certain reasons. Very, very thoughtfully done. And it was done in such a way that everybody's activities were optimized. You know how it is sometimes you are given a service and you're given a space to serve in, and things just don't work there sometimes. You know, like let's say you're in a kitchen, you're cooking in the kitchen, but the tap is like 2 buildings away. You have to go there, get water, come back, start cooking. It becomes very frustrating, right? Very frustrating, to the extent where you are not inspired. It gets too difficult even. Hey, give me another service, right? So these things, King Prithu, town planning he's like the inaugurator of town planning. To set things in a way where the citizens, the people, are best facilitated to make their development easiest and most inspiring. Not that the situation that is set up becomes frustrating and too difficult, that they just want to walk away from it. So this is also very indicative of a very good leader, that they make arrangements that everything is found for the person to live their lives. And we find that in Dwarka, such was the case. Of course, in Dwarka, we find the description shows that all the arrangements ultimately, even though make things easier and inspiring for everybody, ultimately easier and inspiring for them to serve Krishna. One can have everything so nicely done, so nicely arranged, like you find, like if you go to like Singapore or Dubai or cities like that, you'll find everything is so nicely done, but there's something missing. It's very dry. Of course, Dubai is dry because it's the desert, you know. It's so dry and artificial because it is not centered on the Supreme Lord. But there's boundless sense gratification in all these amazing places. America, for that matter. Of course, it's somewhat different nowadays, but in Prabhupada's time, it was the place of sense gratification, where everything was so nicely arranged. I mean, when you drive around in the suburbs in some of these cities, you think, wow, wonder if this is Swarga Loka. It's so amazing. It's so amazing, but it's all designed for the individual sense gratification and not ultimately focused on pleasing Krishna. So like we need to also establish places like that in the world for our own communities. We need to establish where it's all focused on service to Krishna. Not only places like that outside, we need to establish ourselves in that way. We need to town plan ourselves. Like they call this body the city of 9 gates. So it is a city. And we need to plan the development, the establishment, the use of this city in service to Krishna. Otherwise, if it's not used properly, there'll be an imbalance. There'll be an imbalance. Like we know, according to Ayurveda, Ayurveda means the science of living, the science of life. Ayurveda. There are 3 doshas that maintain the optimal balance of the body: kapha, pitta, and vata. Vata. So if these 3 things are sort of out of balance, then the body is diseased. It has to be in balance. Like sort of preparing myself now, because next week I'm going to go for a 3-week experience of this. I don't know. Anyway, that aside, simply to try and get balance. So this is a city. This is a city, and we have to keep it in balance. We have to position the things, put the right things in, both on the tongue, in the ears, through the eyes, right, through the touch. Put the right things in at the right time to keep it balanced for optimal service of Krishna. We need to center the use of our body in service to Krishna. If we don't, then it goes out of balance. And then when it goes out of balance, you become ill, you become disturbed, and you cannot focus. Very, very hard to focus then on one's aim in life. Very hard to focus. Even the things that others may enjoy so much, you can't enjoy because your body is out of balance. Right? Your body is out of balance. So this is what I realized from this, that not just cities out there, not just our environments, which we need to put together in a nice way, in a clean way, in a planned way. We need to plan our bodies, which include the mind, the intelligence, the consciousness, the ego, in a way that it's properly set up, in a way that is focused on pleasing Krishna. I'll stop here now. Are there any comments, questions? Any town planning advice? Yes, Ravindra, Swarup Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Swarup. Can you comment about Dwarka, how the waters cover the whole city of Dwarka?
Okay, I just found it now. I'll read about it. It's quite something about Dwarka. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is from Krishna book. Krishna book. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that Krishna constructed the fort in the midst of the sea. Remnants of the fort Krishna constructed still exist in the Bay of Dwarka. Krishna first of all constructed a very strong wall covering 96 square miles, and the wall itself was within the sea. It was certainly wonderful and was planned and constructed by Vishwakarma. No ordinary architect could construct such a fort within the sea, but an architect like Vishwakarma, who is considered to be the engineer among the demigods, can execute such wonderful craftsmanship anywhere in the universe. If huge planets can float in weightlessness in outer space by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surely the architectural construction of a fort covering 96 square miles within the sea was not very wonderful. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that this new, well-constructed city, developed within the sea, had regular planned roads, streets, and lanes. There were also well-planned parks and gardens filled with plants known as kalpavrikshas or desire trees. These desire trees are not like the ordinary trees of the material world. The desire trees are found in the spiritual world. By Krishna's supreme will, everything is possible. So such desire trees were planted in Dwaraka, the city constructed by Krishna. The city was also filled with many palaces and gopuras, or big gates. These gopuras are still found in some of the larger temples. They are very high and constructed with fine artistic skill. Such palaces and gates held golden water pots, kalashas. These water pots on the gates, on the palaces, were considered auspicious signs. Amongst all the palaces were skyscrapers. Almost all the palaces were skyscrapers. In each and every house there were underground rooms containing big golden and silver pots for stocking grain. And there were many golden water pots within the rooms. The bedrooms were all bedecked with jewels, and the floors were mosaic pavements of Marakarta jewels. The Vishnu deity, worshipped by the descendants of Yadu, was installed in each house in the city. The residential quarters were so arranged that the different castes, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, had their respective quarters. Sounds like group areas, actor. It's kind of interesting. But this is how it was set up in that time. This is how it's set up in that time. It appears from this that the caste system mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita existed even at that time. In the center of the city was a residence made specifically for King Ugrasen. This was the most dazzling of all the houses. The problem, like we have caste system prevalent in India, or group areas prevalent here, and we find the origin of that system here, even in Dwaraka. But the way it is done in modern times is a corrupt version of how it was done there. then. In those days, it wasn't based on color of skin. Rather, it was based on guna and karma. Not on janma and karma, but guna, karma. Not in any way janma. It was based on qualification. When the demigod Indra saw that Krishna was constructing a particular city of his own choice, he sent the celebrated Parijata tree of the heavenly planets to be planted in the new city. And he also sent a parliamentary house, Sudharma. The specific quality of this assembly house was that anyone participating in a meeting within it would overcome the influence of invalidity due to old age. Phew. When we go to meetings now, whoa, we are not immune to, we are very prone to becoming old in those meetings. You know what they say is the definition of meetings in our movement? It's where minutes are taken and hours are lost. Anyway. Excuse me, meetings. The demigod Varuna presented a horse which was all white except for black ears, and which could run at the speed of the mind. Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigods, presented the art of attaining the 8 perfectional stages of material opulence. In this way, all the demigods began to present their respective gifts according to their different capacities. There are 33 million demigods, each entrusted with a particular department of universal management. All the demigods took the opportunity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's constructing a city of his own choice to present their respective gifts, making the city of Dwaraka unique within the universe. Now this is interesting. This brings to mind the science of Vastu. Have you all heard of the science of Vedic architecture? It's called Vastu. And what it basically means is that a home or a building is set up in such a way, taking into keen consideration the directions, the spaces, and what different elements of the house are placed in which directions. Like the kitchen, where heat is gathering, is placed in a certain place. The toilets, ablutions are placed in a certain direction. The gathering area of the family is placed in a certain direction. The spiritual part, the temple part, is placed in a certain direction. The entrance is facing in a certain way, and in that entrance there can't be certain things, or there can be certain things. It's a very important system of scientific Vedic architecture. When that is done nicely, then you find the demigods, like mentioned here, they send so many different items of blessings, open up, remove obstacles in one's path simply by layout. And many devotees find that it actually works in their lives. It actually works. Of course, Srila Prabhupada, his main focus was to establish Krishna in the center of our lives, in the center of our homes. That if that is put in place, then everything else becomes corrected in time. But you can have all the wonderful Vastu arrangements, but if Krishna is not the central feature, then what's the use of it all? So we find Vastu is like that. So we can establish Vastu even in our small areas, and one can see by these arrangements, then one will see the spiritual flow of energy becomes less impeded, or it becomes more open, like that. Going on. All the demigods took the opportunity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's constructing a city of his own choice to present their gifts, making the city of Dwaraka unique within the universe. This proves that while there are undoubtedly innumerable demigods, none of them is independent of Krishna. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna is the Supreme Master and all others are his servants. So all the demigods took the opportunity to render service to Krishna when he was personally present within this universe. This example should be followed by all, especially those who are Krishna conscious, for they should serve Krishna by their respective abilities. When the new city was fully constructed according to plan, Krishna transferred all the inhabitants of Mathura and installed Sri Balaram as the city's father. Hare Krishna. Alright, we'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai.